I remember growing up hearing how dangerous nuclear power was. I remember that was just what I heard. I didn't know very much about it, but it was dangerous, it polluted a lot, and it was a bad form of energy. How much of that narrative has caused the energy crisis that we're experiencing now?
That's a good question. I would say I would attribute the war on nuclear to about half of the energy crisis and the other half to the war on natural gas. If Europe had made nuclear 70 or 80% of its electricity, it would definitely not be having this problem right now. Instead, and that's where it was headed after World War II. So in the 1950s, the United States was promoting nuclear to Europe. Europe needed it a lot more than we did. They knew that there was basically only two choices for them at the time, which was coal or nuclear, and they knew that coal was more polluting, so they wanted to have a lot of nuclear. But then there was this war on nuclear that started with the baby boomers. They were working out the psychological trauma of their fears of nuclear weapons to some extent, but then there were also just people that were
Ah.
bad actors who were also just manipulating those fears because they are anti-civilization people. They're against modern civilization. They're against modern capitalism, modern liberal democracy. They want to return to some period in the past.
Like when? When everyone was dying of bacterial infections? Like when was this period?
Yeah, I mean, it's not rational, right? I mean, it's Rousseau. It's this idea that things were better in the past before we had so much inequality. It's certainly the stuff that you and your dad, talk a lot about. So it's this kind of Rousseauian desire to return to a period before. It's nostalgic. It's sort of the mentality of coddled people. It's sort of like, why, like I think about a child. I think you're a mother, right, Michaela?
Yeah, 5-year-old.
Okay, yeah. So I always think it's like, you think of you say to your child, you can have mac and cheese or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And the kid goes, I don't want either of those. I'm not going to eat them. The proper response is to say, okay, you don't have to eat.
Yeah.
The wrong response is to say, oh, well, we'll try to find some other thing, whatever, I'll make you something else. Well, it's in that constant idea that somehow you don't have to make choices that you can, that really the choices for energy security in Europe were frack for natural gas, burn more coal, or have more nuclear. Well, they said they didn't want that. So they just imported all this gas from Russia, imagining that there would be no consequence, but there was a serious consequence.
How is importing natural gas better for the climate than using natural gas that isn't imported from Russia? Like, what difference does it make where it's from?
Not much. Piped natural gas has somewhat less carbon emissions because it's just coming, you don't have to ship it on a ship, which requires the diesel to run the ship, or you don't have to use energy to convert it into liquid and then
Hmm.
regasify it. So just one way to think of it is that every time you add an energy conversion, you're both adding cost and adding some amount of environmental degradation. So an energy conversion is just turning something from a gas into a liquid, or taking electricity and putting it into a chemical battery, or from a chemical battery to electricity. This is why, in general, what you want is very few energy conversions, and you want the cleanest form of energy high up the energy ladder. So wood and dung are the dirtiest. Coal is cleaner than wood and dung. Gas is half the carbon emissions and a small fraction of the air pollution. And then uranium is the cleanest. Nuclear is the cleanest form of energy because it doesn't emit any pollution or any waste products into the natural environment.
Huh. Okay, so let's talk more about these. I think you said solar panels and wind turbines from China.
Yeah, some of the wind turbines are produced in Europe, but a lot of the materials are processed in China. China dominates the production of what are called rare earth minerals. Most of the minerals that are required for using renewables are processed in China. It's lithium, copper, rare earths. What you're doing, if you're trying to use less oil and gas in the United States or in Canada or in Europe, and you're going to then go try to use more solar and wind, you're just going to shift your dependency from Russia to China. There is talk of bringing those industries back to the United States, but I don't think
Hmm.
anybody thinks that you'll be able to make solar panels at the same low price that they can in China, particularly since the solar panels are being made by Uyghur Muslims who are in concentration camps in China. It's that what Europe shows is that you need to be energy, if not energy independent, you need to be energy secure. So Europe either needs to burn coal, it needs to frack for natural gas, or it needs to do a lot more nuclear power. naturally, the leaders who created the crisis in the first place are not doing those things. And they're proposing to just shift their dependency from Russia to China in terms of going from natural gas to renewables.
You'd think not relying on Russia or China would be the best option.
It's the intuitive sense is the correct one. Yes.